left Christianity and fundamentalist churches, I realized that their religious ideology taught me, due to purity culture that became really big in the late 80s, early 90s, and very much alive even in 2025, it teaches its members that anyone who has sex outside of marriage, regardless of consent or the age or any variables, if you have sex outside of marriage, you are a torn flower, sticky-less tape, and spit that's been shared by everyone in a jar. Now, for those who grew up in purity culture, if this kind of subject is very triggering for you, then this is a trigger warning. But for those who've either heard about it, lived through it, or I wish this was the case, never heard of it or experienced it, this is the kind of thing that happens in puritanical, extremist versions of evangelical Christianity. Imagine, people from the dawn of time have been having all forms of intimate experiences. And at some point, Christianity decided that these natural urges that 99% of the people in the society have, and by normal, I mean, I don't even like the word normal, but I'm going to use it so mainstream people understand. In evangelical Christianity, they call normal sexual experiences things that happen to teenagers or married people. Now, expressing it before marriage is strictly forbidden, but having sexual and romantic desires for the opposite sex is what they consider normal. Now that I'm an ally of the LGBTQIA community, normal is offensive to me. Just because you're hetero doesn't make you normal or natural. Some of the worst sexual behaviors I have ever seen are by cis heterosexual men. Several of them got arrested for it. People like Diddy and Weinstein, R. Kelly, Drake, people like that. And that's just in Hollywood. Imagine the layman who never gets arrested for their predatory behavior. Christians act like it's so unnatural to have certain feelings, have expectations, and act on them over the age of 15. They think it's weird. They actually create an addiction cycle where people feel remorse and unhappiness because they've faltered again, even though animals don't get married. Until very recently, animals did not get married. They did not have wedding ceremonies. Some animals, like penguins, were monogamous and live lifelong with a partner. Others, like birds and lions, they don't. They have multiple partners, sometimes at the same time. And a lot of animals have non-straight members. And you have to be really dumb and ignorant to believe that it's unnatural for people of the same sex, whether an animal or a human, that this does not exist. There are documented cases, hundreds of thousands of animals that have been documented to prefer non-opposite gendered sexual experiences. Expecting all men and women to want the same things is like expecting everyone to like one flavor of ice cream. It's stupid. And they know it exists. I mean, Hollywood made it illegal for 50 years to show a positive gay example in mainstream media. But women who are cis and heterosexual, I have so much compassion for them. Not because there's anything wrong with being cis or heterosexual, being a woman, but because of the real life heartache and pain and harm that evangelical Christianity has put on them. You're not dirty because you have sex. You're not dirty because you find a man attractive. What is dirty is expecting women to be passengers in their own sex lives. That women can't be dominant and pursue goes against everything the Bible believes in. Women are to be in submission to men, the Bible says. And yet, when men need to take accountability, they're the first ones to run in the opposite direction. Men aren't natural leaders. They're not. Women are the natural leaders. We protect each other. We make sure that everyone is taken care of. We nurture, we build, we grow. Men do whatever they want to do. And heaven forbid that a woman and women actually buy in to this ridiculous idea that women have to be spotless. They have to be pure. And we talked about last time why being a virgin does not set up a woman to have 100% of the time a decent partner. I mean, being a virgin is not a badge of honor. It's not something that should be celebrated. It's not something that should be everyone's goal. Any more than being married should be celebrated and idolized. It's just one way to live your life. Marriage should not be celebrated. Virginity shouldn't be celebrated. Individuals' milestones, sure. Marriage is not a good or a bad thing. It's only what involves two consenting adults. Virginity is one of the most destructive straight male creations ever put on this planet. How many women have been assaulted and medically worked on due to stupidity when it comes to virginity? There are doctors out there all around the world that for a fee will re-virginalize a woman. Even though the concept doesn't even exist. Virginity is a social construct, just like gender roles. It doesn't exist. And yet, women will dole out $10,000 to fix a problem that does not exist. Similar to women paying $20,000 to fix their nose, butt, and eyelashes. The only thing as fake as believing the patriarchy knows what it's talking about is paying money to fix a non-existing problem. You're not dirty because you have sex. You're not dirty because you act on your own consensual, probably and hopefully welcome advances to another consenting adult. You're not bad for looking at pornography. You're not bad when you masturbate. What's bad is repressing your feelings and acting like you are a predator for being sexually active. Our society, religious or secular, is broken. Until we can celebrate consensual sexual behavior or the lack of it just as equally, we are broken. And it's not the people that are broken. Sexuality is never broken. But how we treat people who act on sex and people who have no desire to act on it, we don't treat them very well. We treat them like they're a disease. And that disease doesn't exist. It's ridiculous. Believing that a woman or a man makes for a great partner because they're a virgin is like saying that person must be a good wife because they have blonde hair or they have small feet. It's irrelevant. It's stupid. Nothing about you except consistent behavior with integrity, vulnerability, and healthy morals makes you a good person. You being a virgin doesn't make you a good person. Being sexually active doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes you a person. And when we criticize people for having sex and villainize people who don't want to have sex for any legitimate reason, we act like they have leprosy. The idea that no one, especially an impressionable young woman, could see their active current sexuality acted out with a consenting partner, usually under heterosexuality, is villainized. And there is no distinction in evangelical churches for consensual, promiscuous behavior and downright assault. I have watched YouTube sermons where they lump in rape with consensual, promiscuous behavior. And I don't believe in promiscuous or promiscuity or any of those other words that elite men created to make everyone feel less than. But in these churches, there's no difference, no caveat between assault and consensual adult behavior. And why is this bad? Because when you commit promiscuous fornication, all you have to do is ask for forgiveness and stop. So the reason why they lump assault with promiscuous behavior is because instead of an actual crime being prosecuted and this person receiving an actual prison sentence, they want you to forgive them. They minimalize the assault and make it as though it was a bad decision, like two consenting adults having premarital sex would be thought as. And how does it make kids or young people who have experienced assault, how does it make them feel? Like they're dirty. There was nothing they could have done to keep this crime from happening. And yet they're viewed as the cause of a crime, not the victims or survivors that they are. Survivors are shamed in the same way as promiscuous people are. That's why a lot of religious sex survivors who survived rape don't come forward, because they're seen as temptresses. They're seen as morally corrupt because some man of privilege, probably a family member, decided that they were easy prey, which kids are very easy prey, especially when parents don't educate kids and protect them. Teaching kids, especially girls who are very vulnerable during puberty, teaching that they're run like a flower by sex, consensual or not, may not be a biblical belief, but it's very much a traditional Christian belief. Movements like purity culture emphasizes the importance of virginity before marriage. This illustration often refers to a crushed rose analogy, suggesting that once a person has sex, their purity is permanently lost or devalued, similar to how a flower is deemed after it's been crushed or loses its petals. Some Christians say that purity comes from God, not from your actions. That sexual sin is forgivable. Sex is a gift within marriage. The body is a temple. Sadly, Christians and their purity culture have used the run flower analogy, or the paper tape put on each other and trying to be ripped off. These analogies may not be universally accepted as Christian belief or doctrine, but it's seldomly challenged for promoting a harmful, fear-based approach to sexuality. And if heterosexuals face scrutiny and social, religious punishment for daring to control, act on, or portray their sexuality. It's hard to imagine how much more difficult it is for people who aren't heterosexual. Having or not having sex has nothing to do with your value. Personally, I think it is a good idea to get sexual experience before you settle down and get married. That way, you know if something better is out there. There isn't a power imbalance due to difference of life experience. You know what you like, you know what you don't. I think waiting till marriage, I don't think it's a wrong choice, because it's your life, your sexuality to wield as you see fit, legally and safely. I think it can be very problematic to get married having no experience, no life experience whatsoever when it comes to relationships. I think it sets people up to fail, possibly, by creating the lie that if you keep all the rules, you will have a great sex life. That's not how it happens. There are people that it does seem to happen like that for them, but there is a very great number of people that going into marriage without understanding what you're committing to can be extremely dangerous. If you don't know if you're compatible with the other person in every part of life, it's dangerous to make a promise that you're going to be with this person for life. Not having any experience before marriage is kind of like marrying someone on your first day. You don't know a lot about them. You don't know if they're compatible in many different ways. You're gambling on the fact that what you don't know won't impact what you do know. Is it wrong to wait until marriage? Of course not. I think that as long as you enter marriage a virgin with no expectation that this choice will make your life better, that this will not guarantee you a good partner or a good afterlife when it comes after marriage, I don't think waiting till marriage is a bad thing. But it can open you up to a lot of variables you may or may not understand or know how to navigate. And a lot of marriages fail in less than 2 years because they don't have the maturity and the life experience to handle big potholes on the journey of finding out sexual compatibility. But as long as you're a virgin going toward marriage without any expectation of your choice being the only good way to live, or that you're setting yourself up to have no bumps along the road, as long as you don't believe those lies, there's nothing wrong with being a virgin upon marriage. But there is a lot of people out there, and women are notorious for believing that if you play by the patriarchal God's rules, you will be disease-free, you'll find a good husband, you'll be sexually compatible, you'll be happy, you'll know what to do when it comes time. But there are millions of people who don't have a good sex life, don't know what they like, and they waste half their life living with somebody they're not compatible with, and that their dreams and lifestyles don't align. But it's that person's choice on what life they want to live. Personally, I think it's unwise for me to ever consider marriage without knowing everything about that person. Because sex, if it's important to you, and you're like 95% of heterosexuals out there, within the group of heterosexuality, sex is probably going to be a big thing for you. And entering into marriage when you have no clue what you're walking into, I mean, that could be a catastrophe. It doesn't have to be, But for most people, it's going to be a big adjustment. And sometimes the adjustment doesn't make you a better person or a better partner. So no, I would not make a lifetime commitment unless I know everything about the other person. And if my non-negotiables aren't the same as the Bible's non-negotiables, I don't live my life to please the expectations or demands of a book that was written before we understood how the body works. And if the person you're with has so much more experience than you do, and you have no experience, and you don't know what you like, there can be a type of power imbalance. That's why middle-aged men like dating 18-year-old women. It's easy to dominate, to groom, and to make or pattern someone who is very vulnerable and easy and open to manipulation. That's why people who don't have experience, be very careful what kind of experienced people you allow in your life. Because not every person is a good person. And when you don't know anything, you can get into situations where you are uncomfortable and you don't have enough courage or life experience to say no. It's kind of like the scenario 50 Shades of Grey. When one person has no experience and another person has certain experiences that make it hard for them to understand people with no experience, that is a catastrophe. And Christianity pushes women to not have certain conversations. In the Baptist circles, it's very taboo for engaged people to ask sexual questions, to have any form of PDA. And when heterosexuals view heterosexuality as the only natural, right, permissible way to live your life, you're already setting yourself up to fail in some way or another. You're not better, you're not normal because you're heterosexual. Being heterosexual is fine. Just don't think that because you're the majority that you should get some privilege out of it. And just because you're the majority doesn't mean that any other group of people is inferior. But this is something that's taught and very much believed in secular and religious circles. If you're not heterosexual, you are unnatural. Well, that's not even true. It's not even remotely true. And yet, Christianity believes it, worships it, and will die on that hill protecting traditional racist and sexist traditions. You're not broken because you don't want sex like everyone else. You're not broken because you have a lower sex drive, or heaven forbid, a woman has a higher sex drive than a woman. There are groups of people even within asexuality who may or may not want a sexual relationship. And it may be sporadic or different. There's nothing wrong with that. And yet Christian society probably would view that kind of a marriage as a failure, even though it's not. And as long as we view sex and marriage as salt and pepper, mustard and ketchup, we have a problem. All animal species have sex outside of marriage, unless you're one of these rare animals that gets married, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, but 99% of all animals, they have sex outside marriage, and not one of them is going to hell. Why are humans any different? Just because we walk on 2 feet does not make us any more civilized than animals, especially in certain circles. Human beings don't need marriage to make sex moral. We need consent, We need informed, factual education. We need to educate and lift people out of poverty. Because once you're educated and you have a life worthy of being proud about, and I'm not saying that being poverty-stricken makes you have a life that doesn't make you proud. I'm saying people have more pride in their life when they have money, when they're educated, when they have a better future than their parents did. These components, these variables, make people more likely to pursue what they want because they have more of a capability and access to pursue what they want. The idea that marriage has to include sex or sex has to include marriage is utter bullshit. It's something that heterosexual cis males created to get free labor and free kids under the image of respectability. Marriage is an archaic, sexist institution. And before 1840, when Queen Victoria married Prince Albert, women didn't even wear white on their wedding day. They didn't wear veils. They didn't have traditional weddings like we do it now. There was no such thing as a mainstream love in marriage. Marriage was as transactional as buying a car. The problem with our society is, especially in religion, they believe that having sex is ultimately tied to marriage, and yet no other animal on this planet has to be married in order to have offspring. There's only one reason why humans created marriage: to control female sexuality, to benefit with reproduction, to know who their kids really are, and all of that is backed and protected with violence. That's why the Ten Commandments involves adultery, the stealing of another man's property, lying, crushing a man's good name, theft and coveting. Don't take another man's property. Christianity and religion is obsessed with male privilege. And the number one way that women are controlled by the patriarchy is women's self-hatred of their own natural, expected urges that 98% of people on the planet have, or how they feel and how they act resembles expected mainstream behavior. Now, not all expected behavior is good. And until we celebrate asexuals as much as we do married heterosexuals, we are a broken society because of our bigotry and our compulsory heterosexuality. But when sexual assault victims are treated with as much shame as women who've had consensual adult sex, we have a problem. Nobody should be shamed for having consensual sex. The only person who should ever be shamed is somebody who takes somebody's autonomy away. Rapists, husbands who force or coerce their wives into having sex. These activities are immoral and not acceptable. Religion can't tell the difference. They really can't, but they claim they can't. Girls should be praised for being informed, making informed decisions, whether it's within consensual, enthusiastic sex or valid denial. Being asexual should be celebrated. But until we completely throw away and annihilate purity culture is rape culture. Purity culture creates dynamics between people and within society that pretty much makes women hostages of everyone else's choices. Women are actually, in my opinion, most attractive, and men are most attractive when in a positive, non-toxic, feminine or masculine behavior, when they actually know what they want, they advocate for themselves, they control their agency and autonomy, and they respect other people's boundaries. That's what is most attractive to me. Anything more, anything less is not desirable to me. And as long as an asexual person, as long as they live the life they want and they don't want to conform to the toxic mainstream sexuality, fine. More power to you. But there's something creepy about men wanting a virgin. Because over the age of 22, 85% of men are not virgins. You're not entitled to something because you think you deserve it when you're incapable of maintaining that standard yourself. Men don't deserve virgins. Nobody does. And if somebody isn't a virgin, it's usually one of two things. They had it taken from them by a criminal, or they consensually chose to do a consensual adult behavior. You can't lose your virginity any other way. Virginity doesn't exist, but if you believe it does, those are the only two ways virginity could be lost, hypothetically. In either way, people's sexuality should be respected and celebrated. The lack of acting on it should also be celebrated. And we need to stop expecting people to be hetero, cis, and sexually active, while at the same time villainizing cis heterosexual people who aren't active, or people who aren't hetero, or people who don't want sexual activity. Girls are just as valuable when you're a virgin as when you're not. And you can't tell if somebody is. And any man or boy that prioritizes that a person is a good partner because they're a virgin, they are creepy. It shouldn't matter. I care more about someone's personality, sense of humor, strengths, weaknesses, goals in life, career options, whether or not they desire kids. Those are things you bring to a relationship. Virginity is not one of them. Virginity was created to reward people who had no choice but to conform, or people who dared to own their sexuality and are socially isolated. Women are not flowers. Women are not sullied just because somebody touched them. And the Bible goes as far as to declare that if a woman knows a man, she is to be killed. That's the kind of morality we want to read the Bible for. The Old Testament, anytime a woman knew a man outside of Israel, she was killed. If it had to do with battles, colonialization, gaining the promised land, she was killed. Anyone who was not a virgin was killed. The Bible cares more about virginity than it does a woman's agency, autonomy, and what makes her feel safe. And if, in order to be safe in your own skin, you want to be a virgin or not, who cares? And personally, I would never date somebody who asks my body count, asks if I'm a virgin. It's none of their goddamn business. And if it matters that much, whether or not I am or not, I'll tell them to fuck off.